Okay, we should be go. So go ahead and come off camera.
Okay. Hi, my name's Noah Marshall. I'm 16 years old and I'm the proud owner of this 73 Triumph Spitfire.
Hi, I'm Dave Marshall. I'm Noah's father, and this is a project we're doing as a father and son activity for bonding, just learning, experience, stuff like that.
I found this car sophomore year in the spring, so around almost a year ago now. I was browsing through Craigslist. I had already turned 16 and I had my license, and I had been sending my dad like 4 or 5 ads on Craigslist a day for just a variety of different cars. You know, I wanted something sporty, I wanted something cool, but we had a budget, and finding something within that budget that wasn't just thrashed was kind of difficult sometimes. But one day I was looking through and on like the 3rd page of new listings, and I found this Spitfire. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool. Don't really know much about it. So I sent it to my dad, and he goes, you know, that thing's awesome. Let's go look at it. And little did I know, he, back in high school, used to work at a used car lot that sold a lot of British sports cars. And so he really loved those cars and went and looked at it, and it definitely needed work, but we decided it was the right time and the right price and the right condition, so we bought it. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I guess I can add that I think the Noah's surprise was almost the most amusing thing after months and months of just no. My email response, no, almost on automation, you know. And then when we went and saw this car, the body was so straight that I knew that this would be really fun. And although it needed some work initially, it took very little resources, money it had just some minor problems and that we solved in just a couple weekends, and Noah was on the road.
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks when we bought the car. Had to sit in the garage or on the driveway until it was ready to go, but the brakes were mushy and it wouldn't shift, and some of the lights didn't work, but replaced the brake master cylinder and then the clutch master and slave cylinders, and it drove almost like it was new. It was definitely the most fun car I've ever driven. Now I haven't driven a lot of cars, but driving around the back roads of Phoenix, it was an experience kind of like no other. And so I got to drive this car for, I think, 2 weeks.
Maybe.
Put less than 400 miles on it. And one day I was driving over to my friend's house and I got T-boned in the middle of an intersection. And I remembered when I first got this car, I was talking to him and he was like, if you wreck this car's done, right? It's so small, and it's, you know, it's not built up to modern car standards, obviously. So if you get this thing in a wreck, it's probably done.
I mean, I over-exaggerated because I didn't. My teenage son had a sports car suddenly, so I think luckily for us it was, in as far as speed, a minor accident, and that allowed us to buy the car back and have hopes of restoration. But I think I would add to Noah what we found out. I had briefly done a little bit of cursory search on parts availability for this car before we actually slapped the money down, and realized companies like Moss were remanufacturing all of the parts. I was just stunned that we could literally find any part we needed for this car, and so that made the decision pretty easy. And It turned out, like I told Noah, most of the time my car repair experience was frantically trying to fix my vehicle in the middle of the night so I could get to work the next day. And I never found that enjoyable. But working on the car in the garage a few weekends as we started, I realized it really was fun when there was no pressure to get the car done by the next day, and you could just take your time and mess around with it.
Yeah, it was definitely a good experience working with him, because we never, well, I guess I shouldn't say never, but this was the first time in a while we actually really got to work together on something, you know, working towards the same goal, and it made for a really good experience. And so, you know, once I wrecked this car, it was almost a good thing, because the deeper we got into the car, the more we realized, you know, it had more problems underneath the surface than we had initially saw, and it wasn't ready for the winter, but it also gave us like a ground zero to start. You know, we decided instead of just keeping this driving, we should totally restore